All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the May 12th. Okay. This meeting is being recorded. All right. Second monthly meeting. Presentations. We'll start out with public access television funding request. You want to do an introduction? Or
Mr. McDonald is here, Bruce McDonald's here, and Mr. McDonald, I'll let you have the podium.
Thank you very much. My name is Bruce McDonald. I live in Hendersonville, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about public educational and governmental access television that I've been working on with some other residents of the city and county to hopefully bring this to fruition with your help. I was just telling Larry that I think the last time I was in this room was when as a boy, I watched Mayor Al Edwards preside over police court. So that dates me, but it's by way of background, my own background. I grew up in Hendersonville, graduated from HHS in 1965 and UNC Chapel Hill in 1969. After 3 years in the Navy, I moved to Massachusetts, where I went to law school and then practiced law for 38 years in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The snow got the better of me though, and as I got older, I couldn't shovel as much, and so I decided to retire back here to the mountains, and didn't realize how much I miss the mountains till I got back here in 2017. And retirement's the best thing that ever happened to me. My sister also retired here. She moved up here from Mexico, where she had retired, and so we both kind of converged on Hendersonville in 2017, and we're enjoying it a lot. But this project here is something that I started thinking about maybe 6 months ago. In Massachusetts, they have a very active culture of public access television. Just about every town has a public access channel. And I live in a town called Billerica, Massachusetts, which is about 25 miles northwest of Boston. And I was a member of the station, and I checked out their equipment and filmed programs at my church, and took their editing classes and tried to put together programs and get them on TV. And it was a good experience, and it really brings the community together. And that's what I'm hoping will happen here in Hendersonville and Henderson County. Do I control the slides, or?
Can? Yeah, that should move it forward. Yes, sir.
There we go. This is what we're talking about. It's commonly referred to as PEG television, public educational and governmental access. We currently have a government access station in Hendersonville, Henderson County, channel 11. But if you've looked at it recently, it leaves a lot to be desired. I'm hoping that the first thing we do with this project is really reinvigorate that station and breathe some life into it. The public aspect of PEG television basically empowers the residents of the community to create their own programs, become editors, become directors, become cameramen, camera women, check out equipment from the station, and that's what makes it all work, is the participation of the public. Educational obviously involves colleges and universities. It would involve Blue Ridge Community College here and the school department, hopefully, that would create educational programming and content for students and for the general public. For the last 2 months, I've been visiting stations around the state to try to get a better idea of how all this works. My first visit was to Chapel Hill, which they have aptly named the People's Channel. Next, I visited Charlotte, which is called Access 21. Then I went to Greensboro, Knightdale, which is in Wake County. And my last stop 3 weeks ago was in Manio on the coast. They all have vibrant public access channels and government access channels. that really, it was just amazing to see how involved the community is in all of these stations and how much programming they do. Since we're in the pandemic, coming out of it, thankfully, I thought it was appropriate to first talk about how public access stations have stepped up and also government access stations. When I talk about access programming or access television, I'm really talking about all three, PENG. But stations around the country have really stepped up during the pandemic and provided emergency information and local news, remote meeting capacity and training, obviously education and distance learning for the educational channels. And a very important part of this is a social and spiritual connection to prevent isolation. Charlotte, I was surprised to learn, has about 60% of their programming is religious. Greensboro has a high percentage of their programming is religious. Churches have just gotten involved in a big way. And I think that will probably happen here in Henderson County. And it would be great to see that happen. Now, I know that's pretty small, but if you look at the left part of your folders that you have in front of you, and the reason I did include some of these slides that are hard to read from here, but hopefully you'll have the slide decks that you can watch at home on your own computers. But that slide is today's programming. May 26th is programming for the station in Dare County called Current TV. And if you just look at the first item in a group of pages that are clipped together at the left side of your folder, you can just imagine what that might look like if instead of Nags Head and Manio and Southern Shores and Kill Devil Hills, we were looking at Mills River, Hendersonville, Flat Rock, Fletcher, and Laurel Park in Henderson County. Just a lot of vibrant programming, 24 hours a day that informs the public, but also I would suggest brings people together as a community. And all of the stations I visited were like that. I just included this one because I just thought it was so well presented, and that they give each town a certain block of time during the 24-hour day. Actually, I think each town gets about three slots a day to provide whatever programming they like to provide. And I just asked you to imagine what that would look like if that were Henderson County's channel 11, because this is their government channel in Dare County. The thing that will make this work for us here in Henderson County is the current law we have regarding cable companies. And as of January 1st, 2007, we have state franchising as opposed to local franchising. If you were to look at the county's website, Henderson County website, and looked at their ordinances, you'll see the old ordinances from prior to 2007 and all of the requirements that the county placed on cable companies. That's all changed, and now we have a state franchising system. And the importance of that for my presentation today is that, number one, a cable service provider must provide PEG channel capacity upon the written request of the city or county. They don't have an option. They have to provide it if the county or city requests it. But the second important aspect of the law is that PEG channel operators are entitled to receive their share of the Video Programming Service Tax Fund, which is a $4 million fund that the law sets aside just for what they call PEG channels. That basically funds most of the stations that I visited, the 5 stations that I visited. To get to that sustainable funding, though, you've got to have a station and you have to have PEG channels. My hope is that in order to get to that point, that we can use the coronavirus relief money that Hendersonville and other towns in the county and the county will be receiving or already has received. Those are the purposes that money can be used for relative to the project that I'm describing today, to respond to the public health emergency or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. Second, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. My argument is that both of those purposes apply to what we're talking about today, apply to PEG television. And in a second, I'll show you some slides that talk about how PEG television can impact the economic vitality of a city or county. But clearly, we're talking about broadband because that's how people get their information today, is through broadband. Interestingly enough, even though many people are moving away from cable television to streaming, that even gives more opportunity for people to watch PEG channels, because they can stream it on Facebook, they can stream it on YouTube, which all of the 5 channels or stations that I visited have. They have that capability, which is actually more people watch it, I think, on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram than watch it on the traditional cable TV. If you were to go on your smart television and search for Access 21, which is Charlotte's app that they have, and you downloaded that on your smart TV, you could watch Charlotte public access television as if you were in Mecklenburg County. And we could do the same thing here in Hendersonville, Henderson County. So my argument is that this is perfectly appropriate as an expenditure under the funds that Hendersonville and other towns in the county will be receiving from the Coronavirus Relief Act, or what commonly referred to as the American Rescue Plan. That money will jumpstart a PEG station, which will then, once it's started, be sustainable with the money that's available under that $4 million fund that I mentioned. That's a little hard to read, but it's also on the left side of your packet. This basically is what, and I should mention that I'm involved in a group which we have called the PEG Working Group. Just citizens of Hendersonville and Henderson County who have been working on this for about 3 months, brainstorming it and just talking about it, researching it. And we have not yet come up with any reason not to do it. That was one of the purposes of that group was, is this a good idea? Is this something we should pursue? If it's not a good idea, let's not waste our time. But everyone thinks that it is a good idea and it's something that should be pursued. And that slide and the sheet you have in your packet on the left side there, entitled Proposed Henderson County Investment in PEG Channels, shows you basically what a 1% investment from the money that you'll be receiving under the American Rescue Plan, how that would enable us to get a station started. 1% of the entire amount that the county is going to be receiving, county including the 5 towns in the county, 5 cities and towns, will be $332,000. I know it's distributed over a 2-year period, so we're talking about $166,000 in the first year. Based on the people I've talked to with these stations, budgets for these stations run in the area of $300,000 to $350,000 a year. So if we had that money available and also raised additional money, which I have no doubt we could do through the community and through businesses in the community, I think we can get this station started. I think it's doable. It's going to require some work. It's going to require a lot of energy, but I think the goal is a worthwhile goal, and it's one that I'm committed to, and I think all the members of our working group are committed to it also. And just the the end product, what this could mean for Hendersonville and Henderson County, we would be the only public access station west of Charlotte. So I think that we could be a model for Western North Carolina. There's just so much potential here to have a state-of-the-art studio producing great content, involving the citizens in democracy, in media. One thing I've learned that I hope becomes a part of this media center, and a lot of these stations around the country, they don't call themselves television stations, they call themselves media centers. And one of the reasons they do is there's an area of this called media literacy. I never knew anything about media literacy until I talked to two professors at Appalachian State University. They actually have a master's program in it there. It's about learning how to interpret information, how to discriminate when you hear messages, how to create messages that are effective. And they also have a branch of that called digital literacy, which I think that we all can understand what that means. I could use some courses in that myself. That would all be part of this media center we're talking about. So it's not just a studio to produce content, it's to educate the citizens of Henderson County in these areas that are really where we're all headed over the next years and decades. If anyone has a question, feel free to jump in, by the way. I found that picture online. That's a nice picture of the old Green River Bridge. But my pitch to you all is basically getting from the American Rescue Plan Act over to the video programming service tax. We can start this station with money from the American Rescue Plan. We can sustain it with money from the video programming service tax. And that's small, I know, but it's in your packet on the left side. And if you just look at the page that has the yellow markings on it, that is the amount of money that Dare County receives every quarter from the $4 million fund that I mentioned. Well, no, on the left side of your packet, you should have some papers clipped together.
Behind the schedule.
There's some clip. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Again, I apologize for the versions that are small. That's why I put the bigger ones on the left side. And I know this is a lot of material to absorb in a short amount of time. That's why I created the packet, so you can have this, take it home with you. I hope you eventually get the slide deck that you can look at your leisure also. But every quarter, the Department of Revenue distributes money from the video programming service tax, which is the $4 million fund that I mentioned. And they publish this report, which you can find online at the DOR's website, Department of Revenue's website. This page is for, well, you can see Currituck, Dare, Davidson, Davie, and Duplin counties. But Dare County has decided to form a consortium of the county, the 6 towns in the county, and 3 educational institutions, the local community college, the UNC Coastal Studies Institute, and the county school department. So there's 10 partners in that consortium. And because the municipal partners have joined together, they can all be considered owners of the production facilities under the law, which allows them to claim, each one of them to claim the same channel. So there's a government channel and there's a educational channel. Dare County does not have a public access channel. So Dare County can claim both the government channel and the educational channel and receive $13,157.90 every quarter. Duck only claims one channel, I suspect that's probably the government channel because for some reason they didn't claim the educational channel. But the others you can see claim either 2 or 1 channel. That essentially funds these stations. The public information officer in Dare County, Dorothy Hester, and by the way, all of these people couldn't have been more helpful and more encouraging to me. They all have indicated that if anyone here has a question, they'd be happy to talk to you about it and tell you how it works. But basically, Dorothy Hester told me that they're able to run the station with the money they receive from the video programming service tax. They don't have to raise any other money. Their studio is in their county building. On the back of that sheet, you can see it starts with Camden County, then through Carteret, Caswell, Catawba, et cetera. That's more what you see throughout the state. Counties and cities are not claiming they're not they don't have PEG television and they're not claiming the money. So in this report, if you have the whole report, you'd see 152 channels are claimed for the last fiscal year. If we're up and running and we had 10 channels, because the county claims 2 now, if we have 10 channels, that'll be 12 channels that we'll claim. That will be 162 channels. So it will reduce everyone's amount across the state by a little bit because you're dividing $4 million by 162 instead of 152. But that's how this works. And the station manager in Knightdale, which is a 7-city consortium in Wake County and Johnston County, his name is Gary McConkey. He told me that they run their station just on the money they receive from that tax fund, the video programming service tax fund. And I asked him, why don't other people in the state do this? Well, what he's done, what Eastern Wake County has done and what Dare County have done is they've entered into an interlocal agreement under North Carolina law provides for that. And so they all own the production facilities and they all provide content to the stations. That way they can all claim the channels. So in Eastern Wake County, there are 7 towns times 2 channels. That's 14 channels that they can claim. Oops. And that's what it comes out to. And there's a bigger version of that in your packet also. That's what Dare claims to run their station. That's what East Wake claims. And that's what we could claim. If you added an educational channel, it would be 6 times 3 instead of 6 times 2. It would be 18 channels that you would claim. So I'm a lawyer, and when I do research, I don't know what I'm going to find. I hope I always find good news for my client or for the topic that I'm researching. But when I found this, I said, wow. And Gary McConkey said, I don't know why other people don't do this. It's a no-brainer for us. He's the former town manager of Knightdale for many, many years. And now he's transitioned over to being the manager of the station, which the county built, which the town built for them. It's right behind Town Hall. And he said, I don't know why other people don't do this. That money is there available for anyone who starts PEG channels. So having said that you see the figure there, 296, I still think we could raise money. I think people would step up in the community and support this financially and in other ways. Then the question becomes, well, does this money to start the station, is that an appropriate expense or an appropriate use of the money we'll be receiving under the American Rescue Plan? I've read the regulations that came out last week, and they don't specifically say, yes, you can use this money for starting a PEG station. Obviously, they don't get that specific. But they do say that Treasury encourage recipients to consider funding uses that foster a strong, inclusive, and equitable recovery, especially uses with long-term benefits for health and economic outcomes. And they say recipients have considerable flexibility to use fiscal recovery funds to address the diverse needs of their communities. I think that this is a perfectly legitimate use of that money. Given the pandemic we've been through, think of all the things that a government station that was active and vibrant could have done during this pandemic, getting the word out about testing and vaccines and communicating with the public. So I think it's a perfectly appropriate use, and for future pandemics, God, heaven forbid that we have another one, but I think we have to assume that there's other things coming down the line, whether it's a weather disaster, whether it's a public safety disaster. I think that this money is perfectly appropriate use to get ready for whatever might be coming down the pike in that regard. But as far as the public access station, I think that it's a perfectly appropriate use of the money to jumpstart our economy and to keep it humming along. Because every station I've looked at of these 5, businesses are active participants in these PEG channels, and they're benefiting from it. Just some of the ways that I think that PEG channels will benefit Henderson County. I think those are kind of intuitive. I'm sure there are many others. I just think that based on other cities' experiences and other counties' experiences, especially the 5 that I visited, that people in this county, in this city, are going to jump into this and make it work and enthusiastically support it once they see how well it works.
Question about
Sure.
this slide.
Sure.
Yeah, so the program you talked about hasn't talked a lot about business. Tell me, from what your experience is, how would these stations benefit businesses?
Okay, well, a couple of examples come to mind based on my visits at these stations in North Carolina. In East Wake County, one of the towns is Zebulon.
Now, Bruce, that's Zebulon.
Say again?
I'm from East North Carolina. Zebulon.
Zebulon. Okay, I stand corrected.
If you say Zebulon, we know you're not from East North
I
Carolina.
can't.
Just kid with
Well,
you.
that's like it's Concord, North Carolina, and Concord, New Hampshire,
That's right.
or Massachusetts even. My apologies.
Just kidding. I thought John would enjoy that one. I appreciate that.
But the mayor has of Zebulon.
That's it.
There you go, Zebulon. The mayor of Zebulon has a show, a TV show, where he interviews.
Okay, Barbara, here we go.
Stand by for your close-up.
That's
Mayor.
right, the Barbara Vogue Show.
Where he interviews new business owners. And the one that you'll find if you went on YouTube and typed in Zebulon Mayor Distillery, I think there's a distillery that just opened on Main Street. He interviewed the owner, and he's the mayor is not a TV personality, but he did a very good job, and welcoming the business to the town, talking about how it all works, what their plans were. And that gets shown all over Wake County. The Montgomery, Maryland Community Access Television, they started something called the Small Business University, where they bring in a business owner to share his or her tips or things they've learned in starting their own business with other business owners, best practices, lessons learned, things like that. They started out with about 20 people attending the first session. It got over 100, so they had to take it out of the studio into another venue. That's been hugely popular in Montgomery County, Maryland. I have no doubt that we could do the same thing here. Get a business owner to come into the studio talk about this is how I got started. These are the challenges I faced even during the pandemic. This is what I've done to address that, and share that with everyone, with all the other businesses. I'm sure each of you can think of different things we could do, business-wise, community-wise. Film in the Apple Festival. I suggested to Dorothy Hester out in Dare County that what if we get our station up and running and we send you videos about how great life in the mountains is, and you send us videos about how great life on the coast is. Because I hadn't been to the Outer Banks for probably 25 years. It's a different world out there. And to think of the state that we have here, what a wonderful state, what a wonderful area where we live here in the mountains. Why not share that? Boost tourism, get the people from the mountains over to the coast and see what it's like, and get vice versa. So they're just all kind of unlimited opportunities here. And as you can see, I'm enthusiastic about it. I just think it's a great idea. I found that online, and it really kind of sums up the points I'm trying to make and the benefits of PEG television. And that's it. My contact information is on the slides in your folder on the last page. I hope I haven't been too scattered. Sometimes when I get enthusiastic, I tend to get off message. But you can see that I am enthusiastic about it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them now or anytime. I'm going to be making the circuit. I've been to Laurel Park. I've got Fletcher next month. I hope to get in Mills River and Flat Rock and the county. I did meet with Chairman Lapsley. He did seem interested. I think the best approach would be to start with the government channel, revitalize that, and then you're going to have the facilities that you can use for all three channels. But to start with the government channel, then bring up the public channel. The only thing I would say is, in closing, is that there is a deadline, because PEG channel operators have to certify their channels to the state by July 15th of every year. And to certify a channel, you have to have been up and running for 90 days of the previous fiscal year. So we would really have to start this by March 15th to have our 90 days in for this fiscal year. And then on July 15th, we could report that we have 12 PEG channels. That's when the money starts coming in from the state after that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Anyone have questions right now, Mr. McDonald?
I think it sounds very interesting. We did a video for CPR for the community a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And because we identified the child fatality committee in the county that just a lot of people didn't know basic CPR. And so that kind of runs on the county channel, which is, you know, like you said, less than exciting. And so I have hoped that it could be revitalized in some way for a long time. So this sounds like a pretty sweet way to make that happen. So
That would be a program.
thank you for the
Absolutely.
info.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Dark sky ordinance presentation.
Mayor, vote, members of City Council, invite our community development staff to step across the lobby and make their presentation regarding the lighting ordinance and dark sky compliant. So I hope they are listening and they're going to step across the hallway.
Is Adam Murr, is he here today?
Yes, here they come.
'Cause I was thinking on that public channel, we have the Adam Murr lifting hour. That could be awesome.
You
All right.
you could play your saxophone.
No, could do the good.
Howdy, folks. We ready?
Ready?
Okay. We've talked about this need for a lighting ordinance for some time. I have a presentation that will go over at a high level some of the details of an ordinance that we've been talking about with our committee that was formed in the planning board. But before we get into the details of solutions to the issue, we need to know more about what the issue is. And so we've been working with some outside experts. And so we have Daniel Caton is on Zoom, and he has a presentation that'll give some of the basics of the concept, some of the needs for a lighting ordinance. And then we also have, I don't know, is Gary Steinberg, he's on here as well. He is with GE Current. And so he will also be available to answer some technical questions related to lighting. And so between the four of us, we'll package it together and present to you. And then you can kind of ask those questions based on those different areas that we present. So I'll turn it over to Daniel if you want to go ahead and unmute him. Daniel, are you there?
I'm here. Let me start my video. Oh, do I need to start video or not? I guess I can still share screen, right?
Yeah, you can share your screen and go through your presentation.
Okay. Okay, can you see that?
You can, and we can
Okay.
hear you. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate being invited in to contribute however I can in your developing of a lighting ordinance. We've had a lighting ordinance in Boone since 2006, and I helped the town develop that. I'm a professor of astronomy and physics at Appalachian State and the observatory director. I've been a member of the IDA, the International Dark Sky Association, since its formation, and I run the North Carolina chapter of that, the NCIDA. So let's see here. So the basic problem we're facing from an astronomical and even from everybody's viewpoint of appreciating the sky is sky glow. And so that's light from fixtures that reflect off particles in the sky. Large cities, if you're driving down the interstate to toward a large city, you can see it. Whoops. Let me just see if it started using timing, so I'm sorry. You can see large cities from tens of miles away on an interstate, for example. And the stars are not brighter in the country. I don't know what's going on. The sky is darker. Maybe my laptop's flaky. And it's an issue for more than professional astronomers. For example, there are 100,000 or so hobbyists in the US, and they build and buy these big telescopes and have star parties and so forth. For these people, this is their bass boat. And they enjoy getting together and observing on their own as well. And it's important in our society. I mean, our arts have been tied to the stars forever, and as far back as history goes and beyond. So it's meaningful for everyone. Here's a global view of the problem. This is actually a dated image, but so it's worse now. This is a whole Earth projection. You can see the US on the left, and I'm going to try to get my laser pointer. So you can see the US and Europe and Japan and so forth. And you see areas that aren't occupied like the Sahara. And the only natural lights in this picture are these northern lights. Here's a closer picture of light from the USA, and you can track where people live based on that. In fact, there's an entire geographic research journal devoted to studying population movements based on this light signal. Closer to home, I think I sort of got that pointer right. You're down there. You can see the Asheville, Hendersonville, wherever corridors, you can spot your favorite interstate pretty much, and the Winston area and Raleigh-Durham and the Triangle, and pick your favorite area, you can find the light. I'm going to point out a couple of worse fixtures. And by using lights here, I won't offend anybody in Hendersonville because these lights aren't from around Hendersonville, but they're typical of what you will find anywhere. And probably public light enemy number one is the floodlight. You can see these are pointed almost horizontal. They're not shielded, and at night they're pretty bad. This is actually was a mobile home lot in Wilkesboro. I don't think it's there on 421 anymore. But here's an example from Boone. This was the Boone McDonalds. And you see it's lit by cheap floodlights on the corner poles that were probably already there and probably fixtures leased from the power company. And so this is very typical, and I would be willing to bet there are lots of floodlights that are a problem in Hendersonville. You can still use floodlights after the ordinance, but you have to shield them from the sky. You can blind your customers as they walk out trying to find their car with the glare of these lights, but you won't be bothering the sky. A better fixture is so-called full cutoff and has nothing to do with switching the light on or off. It's the shoebox design, which has a flat lower surface. No light goes above its horizon. So all the light goes down. This is the kind of thing that we like. Sadly, these are often picked by landscape architects based on what they look like in the daytime. They architecturally look more pleasing than the Cobra heads. At night, here's our McDonald's after renovation, and you can see the lights are very subtle. The lot is still well lit. And this is typical. You'll notice that good lighting, you mainly see the poles that are lit by the fixture, and you don't get much direct light from the fixture. Our ordinance requires meeting the new standards if you renovate to 10% of the value of your property, and it's hard not to do that if you're renovating. And so they came up to code, and it's a much more pleasing environment. Some facade lighting is allowed. I'll give you that if you'll give me the 99% of the problem. Facade lighting is fine. The other problem we're facing now, though, and we're going to have to revisit it in Boone as well, since we did not control the spectrum. We didn't have LEDs back in 2006, not for lighting, is the LED lightings and their blue spikes. So this is a spike of brightness in the blue. So this is the spectrum of an LED. This is your daytime vision centered on blue-green, which is actually the peak of the sunlight. Well, naturally expect us to have evolved to see in the blue-green peak because that's where our sunlight is. And our night, though, shifts to the blue. And here's the spike of a typical LED. I've got a couple of actual spectra to show you. I got contacted by a resident of the town that the town was installing some new streetlights, and I went out and took a spectrum of it with a handheld spectrometer, and this was its spectrum. And so this is a typical looking spectrum, but there's that blue spike. You get that from the physics of LED light production. There is no way around that except by filtering it or converting it to some other part of the spectrum. This is a 3700 Kelvin color temperature. If you're done real fancy photography, you're probably familiar with color temperature. If not, it's hot is bluer in physics land, and cooler is orange or red. So the newest technology, and this is now becoming available in street lighting, which is great, is phosphor converted amber, PCA LEDs. And so here are some home units, and I have these in my home because I was reminded by something I never thought about. If you're exposing yourself to blue light during the night inside your house, you're messing up your circadian rhythm. So I bought these actually on Amazon, and the way they work, they have an LED inside. They look like a normal light bulb, but they're coated with a phosphor that converts that blue spike to amber, and you see it hardly has any blue spike. A low, warm 2300 Kelvin. This is now actually the goal of the IDA, is getting closer to 2200. So these are now becoming available for installation. Some health concerns I thought I'd mention. 15, 20 years ago somebody noticed that blind women have a lower incidence of breast cancer than sighted women. And the reason is, after they did the science, and that's what we do, is that their bodies are always making melatonin because their bodies always think it's night because they don't have vision. And so that melatonin actually turns out to be a key ingredient in the antioxidant cycle that prevents cancer. So the science has been done, lab rats have died. We we've done the science, it's there, it's understood. And so if you have an iPhone, this is your night shift you can turn on. If you have an Android, I'm sure it has it built in. And if you have your computers, Windows has it built in. I don't know about Apple's. I'm not an Apple person except for my phone, but I think they have it built in. And so you can make your pick a time of day that automatically your phone goes warmer. And so the industry is recognizing this, and that's a good thing. Here are 5 points. I'm not going to go into them in detail. I'm not going to take that much time, but these are 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting. And these are really the guidelines. These were put together jointly by the IES, which is the Illuminating Engineering Society, and the IDA, the International Dark Sky Association. So you had astronomy-oriented people and other people who just want to protect the sky, and engineers getting together to produce standards that both agree on. And so these are the points that all lighting should meet. It should have a clear purpose, should be directed only where needed, and that's generally down. No brighter than necessary. The IES has recommended practices for lighting levels for all kinds of situations, and it should be controlled, only used when useful or needed. And the one that we're also getting to more and more with LEDs is warmer light where possible. And so these are important. I was an expert witness in a legal case in Wilmington where the property owner association put up an offending bulb to actually a Duke roadway light to light a common mailbox, and it was crazy. And I was the expert witness for the plaintiffs to property owners, and it failed on every count. And so they actually they settled. We won. They had no grounds to argue for having that light in there. So concluding, if you're really a casual observer, a good observer of this, the background mine presentation went from bright sodium vapor glow to dark. So thank you for your attention. I hope I've set the context now for my friends in Hendersonville to explain their goals. You can also go to darksky.org and get all kinds of wonderful free information on this topic. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate your help throughout this process and your willingness to spend some time with us. And if anybody has any questions, or as we go through the process, if you guys have questions, he's going to hang on the line. So getting to our ordinance here, again, a high level overview of what we've been working on from an ordinance standpoint. And next slide. We might need new batteries. Is it going? Maybe I got it. Okay. So the dark sky compliance, as you guys know, has been a condition, predates me, but has been around for a while. So we're finally getting to the point where we're talking about bringing it into the code. And so through that, we've acknowledged that there is at least support from City Council and Planning Board to further pursue this and look into it and learn more about it. The other factor is that our current zoning code has this one sentence under the nuisance section of our zoning code related to lighting. So we have a gap in our zoning code as well. And I think that's part of the reason for the condition to exist, is that we're filling a gap until we can do it through ordinance. And so currently we don't have a way to review and measure and kind of preempt good lighting. So with that charge, we've created a committee. The list of committee members and staff members and our outside consultants are listed there for you. This committee has been working very hard. We've been meeting regularly since the beginning of April. And we've looked at national standards, which Daniel mentioned, and we also did a comparison of local jurisdictions and some regional jurisdictions and national jurisdictions as well. So I don't expect you to read this, but this kind of just shows you this matrix we put together with jurisdictions listed on the left side, and then the top row being the different aspects of an ordinance and then where they fall. And so we did that kind of comparison of different lighting ordinances And we really settled in on utilizing the MLO, which is the Model Light Ordinance. And again, the Illuminating Engineering Society collaborated with IDA, International Dark Sky Association, to develop this Model Light Ordinance. I believe the latest version is roughly 10 years old, but it's not an exact science. So they continue to try to make improvements to control lighting to get the result that is intended. And so we've used this as the basis for our ordinance and what we're proposing, but we've tailored it to the needs of Hendersonville. So the MLO starts with creating light zones. So there's a lot going on in this map. I recognize that. We'll break it down in each zone, but essentially all property in the city limits and in the ETJ would be designated within a different one of 4 light zones. And so Light Zone 0 is a bit unique. And Tyler here is going to talk you through some of the process with Light Zone 0.
Yeah, so Light Zone 0, it's basically for more rural parks, wooded areas within the city. So we first just looked at, well, what's our most rural residential district, which is R40, low density residential, which is on the map you can see is the yellow parcels. There's some on the southern part and kind of a little bit at the northern part, but those are really the only places we have that. And then we thought that the intent of this was to protect places that are mostly wooded, would have wildlife that could be impacted by this lighting. So we started trying to bounce ideas off, well, where would these animals be? Where would they be living at? Our initial thoughts were floodplain, floodway, and then higher elevations. Well, once working through that with the subcommittee, as y'all probably already know, there's a lot of current development that's in the floodplain, in the floodway. So there's a lot of commercial development already in those areas. And it also takes up a large chunk of the city. So to say that these already developed commercial areas would have to have the lowest lumen allowances was kind of tough to defend. So then we went to our stream buffer. We still have a stream buffer part of our ordinance. So basically, within 50 feet of a blue line stream, you cannot develop, grade, and that kind of stuff. So we stuck with that. But as you all probably already also know, blue line streams are all over the place. So we are mostly focused on unpiped, free-flowing streams. So the stream that's down on Greenville Highway that runs and always floods Greenville Highway, Spartanburg Highway area, it's a pipe stream. So Publix and stuff would not be included, and all the commercial development down there would not be included in this because it is a pipe stream. It's not an unpiped stream. So we decided on that. And then we moved to elevations. And the elevations you can kind of see over on the western property line or the property of the city. The lime green kind of really points that out. So the lime green is 2,200 feet of elevation. And that's what the subcommittee decided as the bare minimum. Anything, we basically looked from 2,200 to 2,500. And those are reflected on that side of the different elevations. So the 2,200, as you can see, it kind of branches out more as the lime green goes a little bit more across the city than the other elevations. So those were the things that were decided for Light Zone 0 as far as what will be included. So then we'll move to Light Zone 1. So Light Zone 1 is more of our suburban residential, what you consider normal, traditional neighborhoods. And as you've also noticed, we are tying the light zones to current zoning districts. We decided that was an easier, cleaner way to connect these light zones rather than connect them to specific land uses. So as you'll see, R20, R15, and R10 are our more traditional established neighborhood zoning districts. We also included PMD, which is planned manufactured housing development, just because those are usually laid out in a more residential configuration. So as you can see with Light Zone 1 and Light Zone 0, that's what the map is showing currently. Those are the 2 lower light zones that we have, and now we're going to move into the higher light zones. So Light Zone 2 is what you would consider a transition zone between commercial and residential. So it includes higher density residential, as you will see with R6, which that's mostly made up of around downtown. PRD, which is our more dense residential developments. C4, which is neighborhood commercial. All the mixed use districts like highway mixed use, commercial highway mixed use, all those are included just because of the nature of their development. MIC, which is medical, institutional, cultural, is included in that. And so is PID, which is schools and stuff of that nature. And then Light Zone 3 is our more traditional commercial districts. So as you'll see, that's the gray on the map. It kind of follows our entry corridors as well as all of our commercial areas in downtown. Light Zone 4, it's included in the ordinance, but it is not a default zoning district or light zone district just because of the nature of it.
It's in the model ordinance.
It is in the model ordinance. And so it is classified as places like Times Square and places like that where you have to have high lights. So it's not a default ordinance or a default zone, and we don't currently have anything in the city that is falling under Light Zone 4. But it is included in the model ordinance. I will let Mr. Manley explain the bug rating for this.
So you got the idea that we've broken the city into light zones, and those light zones correlate with different allowances of lumens that would be permitted within those areas. The other way that we control lighting is through, and this is really, really key. And so this is why I have this slide, and I'll give you an example and I'll explain it. This is going to be a lot, I know. But so bug is the term that they come up with, and B is for backlight. So light that shines behind where you're intending to shine it. Uplight, light that's going up into the sky outside of where you're intending to shine it. And then G is for glare or front light. So that's light maybe going further than is intended or is needed. So we're able to set a rating, a bug rating, based on pole height and how far away from a property line you're proposing your light source to be. The type of fixture, are you lighting a parking lot or are you doing a building entryway? Depending on your type of light, we'll be able to determine a U rating. And then the G rating is based on the orientation of the light. So if you have a good orientation is you have your back to the property that you're not trying to light. So so good orientation also helps bring down your glare rating. And so there's more information. You do a quick Google search, you'll find a good article on how is bug rating calculated. And that, if you're really interested in getting into the details on that, you can read more up on it. But I'll walk you through an example.
Can I ask you a question? Well, I'm sorry. You're going to walk us through an example?
I will, yeah.
I'll wait to save my question after that.
So, and then one thing quickly to note is that all light manufacturers, they have a bug rating. For every fixture comes with a bug rating. So it's not something extra that a developer's going to have to pay some expert to tell us what their bug rating is. A light that's produced by GE has a bug rating, or Philips or whoever has a bug rating. And so they'll be saying, this is the light we want to use, and here's the bug rating it has. And this gives us an example of that. So I'm going to go through two steps. So the first step is determining how many lumens can you have on your site. And so one way to think about this, and this goes back to bug as well, we're trying to light the site, and we're trying to prevent light from escaping. So if you think about it as a cube, you've got this site you're trying to light. We're not trying to limit the light on that site. We're trying to focus the light on that site and eliminate it from escaping into the sky or off to the back or out on spilling over into somebody else's property. So I think one of the misconceptions with the term dark sky or lighting regulation is that you're trying to reduce the ability to light a site, and that's not the case. It's really about being efficient with your lighting and thinking about it and designing it well. So this table here, this is what we would provide for a developer to fill out this information and submit it to us. And using this calculation, we're able to determine the total lumens allowed on their site. So you have a light zone. So we've gone through the light zone. So under this example, you have a parking lot in a light zone 3. They have 111 parking spaces. So if they have 10 or fewer parking spaces, we can use a table that's in the ordinance and determine how many lumens per parking space they would be allowed. But if they're over 10 parking spaces, then they have to use the hardscape method. So option 2. So they're over 10 parking spaces. So they have to use the hardscape standard. The hardscape area is something that's provided to us as part of our site plan requirements already. So this is not additional information that a developer would have to provide. In this case, they have 71,874 square feet of hardscape area. And based on their light zone, they would be allowed 5 lumens per square foot. And that totals out to just under 360,000 square feet or lumens per square foot. So that's the total initial lumens permitted for that site. So that's part of step 1. So then they tell us the type of lamps they want to install, the quantity, and then the rating. So again, the initial luminary lumens that's listed there is provided by the manufacturer. And we're able to total how many lumens they're proposing with the fixtures they've proposed and total that out. And if that number is under the allowed lumens for that site, then they're compliant. If it's over it, then they have to reduce their lighting. So in this case, they're over by 7,000 lumens, which is looking at one fixture is 19,000. So they're like 1/3 of the light fixture over, not very much. So they're pretty close. They're also would be providing us with information. As I mentioned, sorry, been fighting the cold. The bug rating is, like I said, a manufacturer provides that bug rating. They would also tell us the pole height. That would be information they would submit to us. They would tell us the distance from the property line to that pole height, where it's situated, and the orientation of the light. So for every light fixture, they would give us this information. And this is information they're going to be doing anyway because they're lighting their sites, right? We're just not requiring that they submit this information, but they have this information. I think it's probably being shown on a lot of site plans already. We just haven't been reviewing it. So this is what it would look like. You may recognize this hypothetical example. So I've numbered each of the light fixtures 1 through 19. And the first number is the distance to the property line. The second is the bug rating based on the information they've provided. So this is the bug rating they would be allowed.
Can I ask you a question about
Yes.
that? So on the bug rating, our ordinance says you can have this much lumens. That's the bug rating. They don't come to us with a light and then we figure it out. It's in the ordinance. Tell them how much they can use.
So there's 2 steps. First step, you can have this many lumens on your site total.
Right.
Are you within that threshold or not? Second step is, do you meet the bug rating for all the fixtures you're proposing? And the bug rating is going to be, again, it's like based on your pole height, based on the distance from your property line, based on the orientation, all these kind of different factors. Three main factors: pole height, distance from the property line, and orientation. Right. You show us that on the site plan, we can figure out what your bug rating should be. They've already told us what their bug rating is for what they proposed.
Who would say?
The applicant. So in this case, as I struggled to get through this, my voice, I apologize. they're pretty close. They've got a G1 rating on 1, 2, 3, and 4. What they've proposed is a G2. So they have to be at the rating that we calculate that they need to be at or lower. In this case, the light they're proposing has a G2 rating, which is higher. But everything else is in compliance. Any questions?
So Matt, in that case, they would have to then change the fixture to get the bug light, to get the bug number down from a G2 to a G1.
Or move it or change the orientation. In this case, it's the orientation that's kicking them.
Okay, so they can adjust, they can just adjust
Those
it.
fixtures they're back-to-back fixtures.
Okay.
And the closest property line is to the north. In this case, is actually, I think it's east. Assume we're oriented north in our hypothetical example. Thank you.
So they could, it's not about spending more money. It could be just about turning the light or
Tweaking it.
tweaking it.
Exactly. Especially if you're real close. So they're close. So this one came out close without an ordinance in place. They came in really close on their total site lumens and on their bug rating. And those are the 2 steps.
And this is a parking lot that my guess is they would want it to be well lighted based on the hypothetical location.
Also, based on where the hypothetical location is, you would not want to fill up all the neighbors' yards with light.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, hypothetically.
And that's the intent. Again, light your site, don't light everything else. It's good for you. It's good for everybody else. It's really, in a nutshell, this lighting ordinance is about getting to a win-win for everybody. Now, will it come at a cost? You might have to have lower heights to be able to hit the bug ratings you want or you need, which means if you have a lower height and you're trying to light a whole area, it means you might need more poles. So it could come at a cost. That's the reality. That's a question that was asked early on in this process.
Can I ask a question about the numbers you're using for lumens and things like that? Does that a set number that we put in the ordinance, or was that something that changes over time as technology with lights change?
So we would be referring to the IES, which is the Illuminating Engineering Standards.
Okay,
And they set these rating,
that's the
range
is
of
referring to
lumens.
that. Gotcha. Okay.
So back to take over for a minute, Tyler.
So with the subcommittee, we had some main policy questions that we needed answered so that we could kind of tailor the ordinance to Hendersonville and specifically for us. So of course, the main policy question that we had to tackle first were light zones. And the light zones that were recommended by the subcommittee are what was presented tonight. The model ordinance also included residential requirements for lighting that any residential or residential housing would have to meet this ordinance. The subcommittee felt that that was not needed and recommended that we not include residential lighting in the ordinance. Now, granted, this would be tied to non-residential commercial, but also housing developments over 9 units, because 9 units is kind of a trigger in our subdivision ordinance and our zoning ordinance. So we also made that a trigger for this. So if you're putting up a single family home under the ordinance as it is right now, you wouldn't have to be supplying bug ratings or anything like that. If you're doing a 200 unit multifamily development, then yes, we would want to review your lighting plans and make sure that you're in compliance with our ordinance. So
does that mean, like, if I decide to put up a light in my backyard, I just do whatever I want?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that you do whatever you want. We still have it in our ordinance under the nuisance section where there's where it says that you can't shower your neighbor with light and it can't cause undue glare. as far as you having to come to us to put up a motion light or something in your backyard.
Like a light, like over the basketball court, like a street light that you have in your backyard.
So well, as the ordinance is written right now, residential lighting is not included, and that would fall into that.
Yes, I was just going to clarify what you mean is when you say residential lighting would be the lighting on private property at a residence.
Yes,
Yes.
correct.
So just to add in I think where we stand now is that the model light ordinance is very detailed in how it proposes to regulate private single-family residential lighting. And that would be overly burdensome in the opinion of the committee on staff and on the public. But we also need to have some standard so that we can react to issues where we might have a complaint or someone who's got light spilling onto other property or causing some kind of issues. So for right now, we're saying we don't want to follow the model light ordinance. We don't want to go as heavy-handed as the model light ordinance with the residential standards, but we know we need to have something. And so we would come back to you with something maybe in between.
You be a little more specific. I'm sorry, what do you mean, about?
As far as residential, that's a big old light, which shines over and how hard is that for?
I think the undue glare standard is very hard to enforce. Very hard to enforce. So, as much as you can have a standard and a more objective standard, it's much easier to enforce. So I like the approach of having the standards that are measurable and the ratings and things like that. I like everything like that I'm hearing, but the undue glare standard, yes, I'm not
So is
crazy about
something
that.
You guys could work on with Angela. She'll be the one that has to deal with it.
So we want some standard. We just don't want to be too heavy-handed.
But just to clarify, the lighting standards that you're talking about, are they primarily street lights for the big subdivisions, or are they also
type of lighting that would be on a residence,
within a big subdivision?
on a house? Actually, I have a slide.
Okay, I'm a little confused on that.
Lou wants to jump in here. So this is some details from the model light ordinance on residential lighting. So you see the wall sconce, the post-op luminaries, the occupancy sensor. So it defines the standards for each of those types of lighting, and it bases it on light zone.
So in a big subdivision coming in, each of their homes on their plans would have to meet this standard too.
Correct. Or, Joe Builder comes to us, he's got a single site, and he wants to build a single family home on it. His site plan we'd have to have a lighting plan with this site plan.
Okay, I thought you were saying you weren't gonna impose on single family residential.
So I'm sorry.
So this is the residential standard that's in the model light ordinance. The committee has recommended that not be included.
For now.
If you all have direction for us at this point, we are trying, I'm doing my best here to stay out of the weeds because we're relatively early in to the review of this process. Committee's met 6 times. This hasn't actually been reviewed by the planning board. So we're jumping the shark a little bit with our timeline to try and get something in front of you all for review. So if there is a desire for residential requirements, we'll hear that from you all today. We'll take that back and continue to work on it. The committee had felt that, getting into that level of detail was burdensome on the community. I would say getting into that level of detail on your community development department is also going to be burdensome. And I'm not sure you'll be hearing for more position requests from me if we're going to get into that kind of regulatory environment. So just if there is a desire to see that, I think we're hearing that. The slide that Matt just showed is what's in the MLO, what's in the model light ordinance. So we can kind of push and pull on that accordingly.
So one thing that I do think would be good to consider is the difference between what's being shown on a plan coming in for development and then what is a true police power nuisance. Because it might be more appropriate to talk about just neighbors getting along, like what we're talking about, especially for existing development, to put in some standards in our nuisance ordinance, because we do have a standalone nuisance ordinance. So there might be a two-pronged approach that you can take that might work better, such that you wouldn't require a builder under the police power ordinance to come in and get the permit. But if you got a complaint that my neighbor is having too much glare in my yard, then you've got the standard set up. You would go out, you would take the measurements, and it would be a way to enforce it, but not require an upfront permit. So it's just something to consider.
You're essentially saying to redefine the nuisance type.
In the
Section.
nuisance ordinance, and then it would be an enforcement thing after the fact. So like in Councilmember Smith's example, if he puts up his basketball goal and he's got a big light out there and the neighbor calls and complains, it's causing glare in my house so as to be a nuisance, you've got the standard in your nuisance ordinance. You'd go out there at night, you'd take readings, or you'd ask for the bug rate, whatever the standard is. And if it exceeds that, they'd have to abate the nuisance and come into compliance with the standard. So it would be.
Does every lighting produced have a bug rating? Like any light bulb or any fixture?
Yes, especially as far as commercial or area lighting. I don't know that your incandescent bulb at Lowe's has a bug rating.
Because I think that's what she's getting at.
Floodlights, things like that.
Somebody's got to come out and take a reading. I don't know what that means. You
Well,
point a machine at it and say, that tells me how many lumens it is. Okay.
yeah, well, so you could do your measurement. If I'm understanding correctly, if you use the bug system, you could know the height, the orientation, the type of fixture that's used.
And the amount of lumens coming off at a particular degree or angle onto another property.
All the light bulbs, even incandescents, do have a lumens
Yes.
rating, don't
And if
they?
they don't, there's a way to calculate it based on their wattage and that kind of stuff.
So,
Right. So that's an equation.
right,
Say, hey, too many lumens here, you got to get a different bulb.
get a different bulb, move it farther away from your, lower it, put
So I
two
think
low
that's what
ones.
you're
up.
talking about. It's not
Yes.
just, that's right. It's like, there's some numbers here and these
Yeah.
numbers are too high.
And I will say, I think Gary is on the call, and so if we have more technical questions, he's been a huge resource for us. So we want more science, we can get it from Gary.
I have a question. So it says that it was not recommended by the committee to do an inclusion of residential requirements due to just hard to review and enforce. And so then is it, I guess, necessarily fair to have those same types of inclusions on other areas? Because then are you starting to get into your, I don't know, rights of your property or?
For fairness.
Right.
So the reason for that is really about the intensity of lighting. So commercial lighting, multifamily lighting, industrial lighting, all are the main culprits of either nuisances or having lighting that's spilling over or spilling up. And so by targeting the regulation on that, we can have the greatest impact without having to over-regulate on every private citizen residential use.
But you wouldn't necessarily be over-regulating on a residential, you would just be regulating, but then we're picking to regulate on a
It
specific
is a
group.
policy question, absolutely. And
That's-
so it comes as a recommendation from the committee, recognizing that residential was, and it falls into a different light zone category. It has different sets of requirements. And so it would be absolutely a policy decision. And that's one of the reasons, again, try and keep us up high. Would we want to pursue residential versus just focusing on commercial impacts? What Matt, I think, is saying is the majority of light impacts resulting from commercial development? I think yes. If you look at a overnight picture of downtown Hendersonville, the city of Hendersonville, you're going to see the light showing up along our main commercial corridors and being less prominent in our residential districts. So but to your point, Jen, I think it absolutely is a policy decision. And right now, these are what some of the committee recommendations have been. This has, like I said before, hasn't gone before planning board. We would like to get, them to also make recommendations, but obviously, again, if there's sort of consensus on direction for us, we would want to hear that today. We can take that and integrate it into the process moving forward. We do have two other things that I do want to cover, and so I'm going to ask Tyler maybe to come back up and finish off on the amortization, because worked on pronouncing that correctly.
So we'll get you more on residential. I think we've heard that.
Yeah, I think we have.
But I don't want you to get bogged down on residential, because that way we won't get.
I agree, and I agree that most of the culprits are the big banks of lights, but you don't have these houses.
I would rather, be able to walk before we sprint. So I would say continue with what you're doing, with the assumption that we're going to stay out of the residential zone. Just look at commercial right now. And then we get this in. If councils want to go back and get into the weeds more with that, then you can still do that, as long as you have some way to interpret something. So I don't think we have a lot of this.
Commercial or large multifamily.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you would include that in there.
What zone was that?
It's basically anything over 9 units and more. Any
Yes, ma'am.
residential development, including 9 units or larger.
What she said.
Well, I do like Angie's idea. So at least there's something, if somebody's neighbor comes and complains, we have a way to enforce something.
Yes, so you could do that as a phase 2. It's a lot easier to do a police power, no public hearing, so that could be a phase 2 approach. But I did have one clarification. So for a 10 or more unit subdivision, because you said anything with 10 or more units, are you then just going to regulate street lighting as opposed to houses? That's what I'm kind of hearing, but I want to make sure that everybody's clear, so you won't spin your wheel.
8 units or more, or 9 units or more.
Right, but they're not going to have to show bug lighting
The plan
ratings
is
for the
assessed
homes.
for the whole site.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
houses
would
and
include them.
streets.
The lumens is a baseline that's established for the site, and the site has to meet.
Which includes the lights on the outside of the house.
I think that's what I'm
It would
hearing.
just
Yeah.
be-
Because those would be individual single-family homes on individual parcels, so they would not trigger. Now, a street lighting ordinance also, we have another slide after this, is another area that we have not gotten into yet. So we know a little bit of something about the residential components. We have just not gotten into the street light ordinance section yet. We either plan to do that as a phase 2, coordinate with Duke, do some initial, what we're really focused on now is really the commercial aspects. And that's kind of where we're at today, giving you this update. We know a little bit about the residential. We'll talk about it a little bit today. Streetlights, whole nother ballgame. But we think they are also very impactful. And so we think we need to come back and address streetlights as well. But we will not be talking about that today.
All right. Can I have a time check? It's 5:25, and we still want to talk about the fire department because Keith Carlin's here with ADW. The cutoff is 2 hours, so I just need a time check on how we want to continue this conversation.
What else do they need to have direction on right
Okay.
now?
Well, Pete, how long is this going to take? That's what we should really
I'm
protect.
sorry, we've got 2 slides left. And
Okay.
if
I'm
we
just-
can-
Just as long as I have some leeway, because I want to make sure we have Keith came out from Charlotte, so I want to have some discussion, and I know we'll need some guidance on the fire station thing. So just make sure everybody doesn't need to run out the door at 6 o'clock.
I do
I'd
have
like to run out
somewhere.
the door at 6 o'clock.
I have
do?
somewhere I need to be at
Absolutely.
6:30.
Okay.
So I think, can we just stop now?
Yeah.
I don't want to be rude about it, but this
Well,
has to happen.
they're gonna
Yeah.
talk about these last 2.
Okay.
So,
I mean, we can also talk about this in a council meeting as well, right?
This coming council meeting?
A council meeting.
Yeah, certainly we would be coming back anyhow.
And it
Okay.
sounds like there's some things that,
This is a zoning text amendment, so at some point we're gonna have to hold a public hearing on it.
There's a lot.
Is it possible that you could send us an email and say, we'd like to hear your feedback on blank, 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 blank?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
But you're
Send
saying
us
the
that
next 2 slides
presentation.
are actually really important.
Well, no, so there's two other recommendations that came out. The amortization date, which is the model light ordinances, and a number of them have like basically what I call a drop dead date. That all lighting within the city has to be compliant by this particular date, whatever that might be.
5 years, 2 years.
Exactly. The committee did not recommend including that.
That means that you basically, everybody has to become compliant instead of having a trigger of redevelopment that just point blank, everybody has to.
10 years from today, the adoption of the ordinance, every light within the city has to be compliant.
Yeah.
Committee did not recommend that. So I'm going to just blaze right over that and go to conformance triggers, which there were, for existing non-conforming lighting. So the MLO gets adopted, the ordinance is in place, a property which has non-conforming lighting comes in to do one of these things, that drives that they upgrade their lighting to be compliant with the existing ordinance. Not doing these things, falling below these thresholds, would not trigger a compliance requirement. So there's those two things are, those are big sticky ones. And we're happy to put that in an email. We're happy to discuss it further. Although if there is, hard direction on either one, the committee did recommend, as you see, including the conformance triggers. And those are comparable to some of existing conformance triggers we have within our zoning ordinance. So, things like landscaping requirements are triggered after a particular investment in the property, those kinds of things. So
the change of use is a Wendy's went to a doctor's office as a change of use. So that parcel would then have to, regardless of what money they spend,
upgrade their lighting.
They have to upgrade their lighting.
Unless their existing lighting.
Yeah, is conforming. Yeah,
We would need to see their light plan to be able to confirm that.
Just using an example.
And that's it. That's our presentation. Simple, straightforward, easy stuff to pick up on, right?
Like that. That's it.
That's it.
We'll let the fire department take over. We can send an email with this information for John's instruction. I'll lean on him to give us guidance on how he wants to tackle that.
There will be more discussion, obviously, about this. I feel sure we'll come back to council with more discussion.
One of the things that I would note that was on that last slide that's not included. We are planning to talk with a number of other committees within the city, and also Duke Energy, Business Advisory Committee. Now that I don't have the presentation up there, I can't remember all the groups that we had identified.
DOT was just mentioned.
Okay, if there are others that you want to speak with, or that you all would like to see speaking with, certainly happy to do that. John, I know, can relay that if you all speak with it. Okay.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right. We will continue on. I'll invite the fire department to step across the lobby. But Keith is here. Keith Collins. With ADW Architecture. He's our managing architect on this project. Whatever, I think that's the right title. Anyway, and so I want Keith to come, and now that we are heading into the budget's almost done and we're heading into the new year, to bring everybody back up to speed and make sure we're going in the right direction. So Keith, I will turn it over to your point to kind of give a little history and talk about where we are, and so we get clear direction going forward, make sure we're going in the right direction for city council.
Yeah, okay, great. It's great to be back. Do you want me to wait for a second, or?
Yeah, wait a minute.
Yep.
Oh, and I didn't realize I'd lost another one. Sorry, I didn't realize I lost two of you. I know.
Hey, that's okay. I'm good. I'm excited to be working on the project. We're really excited. I bet you.
There's a few other folks that may be excited too. They're all in white shirts.
Yes. I actually saw a couple of I saw a couple at the conference, Chiefs conference last week. So.
I had this word for you.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Well, yeah, as John mentioned, we thought we'd just kind of cover three things. One, just a really quick overview, kind of where we'd come from in the study phase. You guys have already seen that, done that, so we won't spend a lot of time there unless you had a question. But then we wanted to get some input from you guys on the exterior aesthetics that you might be looking for, or just get some feedback from you guys if there's certain things you like. So we have some different images of some of our fire stations in there, sort of broken into three kind of different categories, just to get your initial thoughts about it. So it's a different site than what we had done on Fire Station 2. So definitely thought you might have some different thoughts on how that works. Obviously, the fire department will have some thoughts about that. So we'll just kind of blend everybody's comments and go from there. And then I just have a list of some next steps that you'd be interested to kind of see kind of how we would progress and what you might expect. So as you recall, we did a needs assessment. We studied the existing facility, looked at different options and how we might be able to meet the needs. There were a lot of issues with how we could meet all of the needs with the existing facility, looked at different versions at different kind of price tags. They really weren't meeting all of the needs though, particularly well, with the exception of option 3, where we would build a new facility on that block, basically. We'd be set up to where they could run 3 companies out of this station. That is quite a few out of one station. A battalion chief as well as their administrative functions, all on this one campus. So this really, I think, was meeting their needs now and in the future, and really kind of where we landed. I did update a few budget numbers a little bit. The construction market has changed quite a bit since we did this study, honestly. There's some really unusual things going on. I'm sure as we get into this and all, we'll keep a good tab on that. We'll do lots of estimating at each step, and we'll keep you guys advised as to how things are looking. But those numbers seem doable at this point still. We had done another option without the admin there. Sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have the updated version, or maybe I'm missing something. I don't mine.
Yeah, it should
mine
say
don't say
revised.
revised.
Yeah.
None of mine say that. So I just wanted to be able to compare them.
Yeah, well, you got the one that says revised, so I don't know.
It's on the SharePoint.
Oh,
Just on that one
handout.
Yeah, option 3 should say revised.
So what I sent you was, what I showed you is what we presented in January.
Okay.
Okay.
I just gave you what presentation that we made when we made the decision in January of 2020.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I did not.
It's okay. I'm blind. I get mine printed. So.
No, that was good that you noticed that. This is the only one I revised. I didn't go to the other options. Since we
Okay,
weren't
sorry.
pursuing those, but I did update those a little bit.
Recreation facility.
Okay, so what I thought would be helpful was to just elicit some feedback from what you guys visualize from an architectural style. If you had any preconceived ideas or thoughts, things that you'd be looking for. One of the things we talk about when we interview for fire stations a lot is that we don't design to an ADW style at all. We really want to know exactly what our clients are looking for, what makes sense at the specific site or context. What we did for Fire Station 2 out in that location probably isn't as relevant to what we're doing here. This is really a gateway into the downtown area. So, we thought it would be worth visiting some images. And so these are just some of our projects. We find a lot of fire departments and municipalities, there's a certain nostalgia with the fire service. And so a lot of them tend to like sort of a traditional firehouse feel. So you see a lot of arched doors for the bay doors, things like that. They used to have fire hose drying towers. So there's a lot of vertical tower elements in a lot of the designs. We have one down in Charleston there that's got more of a low country feel, obviously. Just looking at other locations, again, these are all sort of, we would consider more traditional styles. The one on the bottom left is close to a school, so it has a little bit of a feel. It ties in with kind of low country, but kind of some school imagery as well. So there were some reasons for that.
We got a real basic question for you.
Yeah.
The way it's facing, I guess the doors are facing to each street, right? Which way will you face the trucks? How will you do that, Chief? When I know that's not a structural question.
So ultimately, with 3 companies there, we would put 2 trucks facing one way, church, and one
out
facing
the other.
towards North Main.
So you don't have to go around the block to correct your.
Is people taking calls on the north end of the city would go out on the North Main.
So you hope all the calls aren't to the north end that day, like back to back to back.
Perhaps. Might have to go around that.
It's interesting because we've started secretly playing with the plan a little bit, and as we were laying out, we did that. We showed one engine kind of going northbound and kind of different. We're thinking that you might want to do that. The other thing we were thinking is,
These probably won't show up.
Oh yeah, because it's modern. Yeah. So if you're familiar with where the memorial that's existing is and the drive that goes through at the bottom of the site, which narrower, while we won't necessarily need the heavy duty concrete paving for trucks like we used to going back to the building, we thought we would probably keep that as concrete so that if they wanted to reposition or do something like that, they didn't have to make such a tight U-turn down the road or something. So that would give them a little flexibility on that. But that brings up a good point. In our opinion, we have 4 front elevations on this almost. And so they all will need to have a nice aesthetic appearance. We can't really have a back of house that's not as nice. However, our thought is that the admin is sort of 2 stories as you're coming into town. You'll be seeing that building as a 2-story element, with sort of a lower level. So we would think that your entrance to the administrative area, we would definitely embellish that detail there. So you have something nice that you're seeing as you're coming up the street there. Obviously the bays, looking at the bays, a fire station just has a certain aesthetic that's very nice looking at all that. And then really at the entrance up sort of on the fire station side entry at the top there, we'll want to have something that really identifies where the public should enter if they're there to visit or do a tour or something like that. So yeah, that'll be an interesting little puzzle for us to keep working on. Yes, sir.
On the architectural designs, your comment there about there being 4 facades. So it is going to be right across the street from a very new school building that will be finished here in a year.
Okay.
So I'm just saying that if you're looking for ideas, right across the street, Hendersonville High School,
Yeah,
that side of the building.
John, do you guys have some renderings of what's going in? I would love to get those.
Absolutely. And as we went, the traditional approach, I'm thinking particularly of the Stillwell building and the school building, and which would mirror very much the architecture of this building from Mr. Stillwell.
Yeah, that'd be great if we could see rendering of the proposed design. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Not proposed. You can go over there and take a picture.
There,
well, so you can take pictures of it. So they're taking a 1927. They built a new building attached to a 1927 school building. So yeah, you can see.
Good. Okay. Well, that'll be good context. Yeah,
Right.
for sure. So anyways, we broke it up into 3 categories. First being more traditional styles, then transitional is sort of just in between. That's not really trying to have so many historic references, but might have a few details that still kind of have some traditional detailing to that. We've got the station down in Greenville there, 2-story one up in Wake County, one in Kernersville over there. So sort of an in-between language a lot of times. might make sense too. Some others, Waynesville, we have one in Waynesville there. It has more stone, has some kind of wood features in the apparatus rooms, kind of neat things there. And then of course, more contemporary, yours being one there. This might not be the right language for this location. We are doing the top right corner as our new station in Asheville, just bid. We're just about to start construction on that. And it is very modern, but it does have a lot of natural stone and lots of wood materials on it. So it's sort of got a mountain aesthetic in a more contemporary way. So anyways, those are, I don't know if I had another one. Yep, I had another one. Another view of the Asheville one on the top right, left. And then one down in Clemson and one up in Cary. But again, I don't know that the aesthetics of the really modern ones jump out to me as being the right choice there. Where Station 2 went was different. I think sort of industrial and a little different out there. It made more sense. So do you think the school and sort of,
Well, part of the school's design, I feel like, is a more modern
pretty
contemporary design that they've kind of merged
kind
with
of blended?
the historic building. It's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
the
actually
Stillwell
big,
building,
like glass.
yeah, the Stillwell building on the outside is not going to change. The inside is going to be totally gutted starting June the 8th.
Okay.
But the new building, lots of glass. I mean,
Okay.
it's,
Yeah, and they tucked
It's
one
very-
in the Stillwell building.
Yeah.
and, like, on the outside facade, but
I went to the police station before I came. I should have run by there too. So they've done a lot of work.
it's,
I
Yeah.
will say I like those red bay doors, the ones that are in the bottom left. They're in a couple of these pictures. I think they're in the top right too.
Most of ours we end up doing. They just look like a fire station.
Yeah.
You look at the one on the bottom left with the dark green, it just doesn't look quite the same.
Still gonna have a pole, fire pole.
Probably won't have a fire pole because the 2-story piece, we
I'm
could,
done.
since you actually have some, but the 2-story piece is going down to the admin area. We could put one there.
But could you
But-
move? There's one in the building now, isn't there?
Yeah.
You could move it.
Yeah, we could
into
move
the
it. We
admin
actually could leave
building.
one. We could put one in to go down to that kind of admin area below.
I'm just messing with you, okay? I spent 24 hours with them and you had, the first time I went down the steps and I would not do that again. If I had to fall down that pole, I was gonna fall down it because they had to wait on me. So, yeah, it's a way lot faster. Just curious.
Yeah, the way we're gonna have it set up is all the kind of fire station side, turnout side will all be right on grid with the bays.
Oh, that's
So they'll be
good.
able to turn out really
That's
quickly and safely that way.
It could be incorporated as an architectural feature.
It could.
One of the things that
Yeah.
we don't want to lose too much of our tradition in that we're a rare bird in our county. There are other agencies that are 50 years old, fire departments, we're over 125 years of tradition. And so you want to still remember where we came from. We're using new technology, but we're still doing the same job. So I'd like to incorporate that in some component that it looks like we're a 125-year-old fire department still operating.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got the fire poles already, so we'll be able to reuse those. Yeah, it'll be cool.
Even if it's surrounded by bulletproof glass and I can get on it.
actually, no, there's a fire pole at Hendersonville High School. I forgot. Right in the middle of the stairwell. I'm kidding. Get to class really fast.
I was gonna say, you had me for a second.
Used to be 3-story fire pole when I was a kid. Oh,
wow.
3 stories.
That's terrifying.
We got a nosebleed when you were
Was it
looking down.
continuous or was it in a couple pieces?
In this building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Straight down,
holy.
3 stories. It's 2 stories now, but it was 3 stories. Wow. I'd go up and look down that
With
thing.
like no rappel lines.
Yeah, no,
I
you
really
just
want to be a
went-
fire.
Yeah, that would be nerve wracking.
Yeah.
Not if you're used to it though. And your hands too. With your arms too.
Next steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
John's
we
like,
move
bring it back
on.
in.
All right, so I kind of broke out the next steps. These are the imminent next steps, and then I have some bigger picture ones. Obviously, we'll need to get the survey work going on that site. A lot of terrain, obviously, on that, and a lot of existing utilities, things like that. We'll need to really get all that information. Begin site and building design layout. Well, we've gotten a little jump on that, so you'll probably be excited to know that. But we'll definitely want to come and review that with you guys and make sure if there's other things that we need to incorporate or things like that. We'll begin the exterior 3D imagery. We'll have 3D models of it. We'll do fly arounds. You'll be able to see it looking very photorealistic. It'll be very cool. You got to see a little bit of that with the police department when we did that, but our 3D stuff's gotten even better since then. But so we'll present the schematic design work after we've worked through kind of the functional layouts and all that. We'll come back and present to John, whoever you guys want to do that before we send it off for budgeting. And then we'll make any revisions, obviously, comments you guys give us. We'll get the geotechnical testing going. Obviously, there's a building there, so we're not going to drill holes where that is, but we'll go and take some tests out there to see what the soils situations are. And then since we'll have a construction manager on board, I think by then, we'll be able to get them to really do the schematic design pricing and really see where we're at. As I mentioned, with COVID and everything, there's some weird things going on in the market right now. You'll be happy to know that our bid on the Asheville project came in pretty good. It was a little over, but it wasn't, we were expecting it to be a lot over. It was, we had 4 bidders drop out the day before the bid, so we were anxious about that. They said steel and electrical pricing would only hold their numbers for 1 day. So there's just some weird things happening in the market right now with polymers, another one plastics. They're saying paint may be a shortage coming up. So there's just some weird things with kind of getting everything restarted in the economy and all that. So anyways, we've got a long time, so hopefully those things will smooth out a little bit by the time we're ready to build. But having a construction manager on board will be very important because they'll have the pulse of all that stuff on a daily basis. So anyway, so we'll do that. We'll get the cost estimates. We'll make any revisions we need to via budget. Obviously, we'll be reviewing with you guys when the time is right and showing you the progress, getting your approval to move forward. Once we do that and everything's reconciled and we're all on the same page on how to move forward, we'll move into design development. That's pretty much where the engineers then start doing all their work with the mechanical systems and structural systems, more detailed on the site design. Again, we'll go through a pricing exercise as soon as we finish that phase. And again, we'll reconcile, make sure we're all on the same page and before we move forward. Once we are, we'll move forward into the construction documents, the final phase of our drawings and specifications. Again, final pricing with the CM. They'll bid, probably need to bid some things early like steel or things that are commodity issues. Again, a real advantage to going the construction manager route right now, because you can do that with like our Asheville project. They couldn't bid the steel early, so it had to be in their whole time frame. So that'll really be good. So you'll probably set up 2 GMPs, one with some of those early things would be my guess. And then we'll go in for permitting at that point, get our permit comments incorporated, and then they'll go and bid all the rest of the pieces out and bring you the second GMP is my guess, what they want to do. But with the market today, that'll work really well to be able to do that. And then at that point, obviously they'll start construction. So the construction time, I think we were thinking it would be about, I can't remember what we said. I think probably 13 or 14 months we were thinking on this. Yeah, and depending on the temporary situation and when the fire department moves, that's something they could do a little bit earlier too. How much earlier the CM will probably want to weigh in on, if it's better to go ahead and do that and wait and remobilize, or whether it's better to have it just flow into that. They'll have better feelings on that, but that's something they could get done ahead of time also, which would help. The lead times for some of the things like the steel and all may make it draw out just a little longer is my guess, but with the CM on board, maybe we can eliminate that. So.
John, what do you think is the best date, the earliest that we would begin this project? I mean, I know
that's so design. Keith, what do you think in design? Probably.
Well, I would think we would be permitted and ready to go within 8 months at the most.
Okay.
From today?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, we kind of got a little bit of a jump already. So we've got a lot of work backing up, so we wanted to get this
And we
rolling.
we
so.
do have some survey work and stuff that we're gonna have to get done, so that depending on how, so 8 to 10 months, probably 18 months.
You mean to begin construction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. The high school will be done about time this one starts. I mean, that's what they say.
So that will
Yeah,
be
and-
our planning.
Yeah, and the CM will have a lot of input on that. Obviously, they might do the demo and some of the early foundation and steel order work ahead of time, things like that. We'll see what they recommend on that.
I have a question. This is probably maybe inappropriate, but so when I came on the council, a lot of this kind of was already moving forward. And I've talked to John, and the question is it a better idea to build Station 3 first so that we have a home base essentially for people to operate out of during that entire construction timeline? And then when Station 3 is complete, you go back and you do this one essentially as we were going to do it already anyway. And I just wanted to hear why we aren't doing that, or why that's not a thing. So, wondered.
Can we respond to that?
Anybody? I just have never really heard.
So the discussion on Station 3 was that the population density was not great enough yet in that part of town to justify building a new station yet. And that's the reason we just bought the land in anticipation that the city will continue to grow in that direction. At some point, we'll have the numbers that we need to justify having a station there. So,
And I
also,
remember hearing that part of it.
right, but also, I mean, just
Station 1's
the money, I guess, is another part of it. Is we just we don't have it in the budget or at that time to build two stations or rebuild one and build another one.
How long though? So I feel like those decisions were kind of talked about a couple of years ago, and then we see all these newer population figures coming into this area, which are substantially higher than what any planning has been planning for the last 5 years. And then what is that number? I mean, what is the number?
I can't answer that one.
Because usually I feel like in government, by the time you realize that you need something, it's already like, you're already kind of behind.
Kind of like I-26.
So let me jump in here. And the reason I wanted Chief Miller here is I give the fire department credit. They've done a lot of really good work looking at the interim steps as it relates to where they operate out of. And this may actually do two things. It may allow us to test, Chief, get ready. It may allow us to test the demand on the south side, and by putting a temporary location there, and allow us to house our firefighters there during the construction. So you want to just kind of hit the high points.
Welcome the opportunity to build those stations. And you never hear a fire chief say, don't do that.
Right.
But one of the things I expressed to Mr. Conant, Mr. Pauly, as we discussed this, and where we would relocate everybody, is the organization's already outgrown the spot that it's sitting in. In order for us to build Station 3, which would be a substation designed for a truck, 2 bays, and 3 or 4 personnel, would now need to be another $9 million station to house 11 people for 2 years while we built a $9 million station. So as much as I would love for you to say, yes, please, let's do that, I'm trying to be fiscally sound and say, we need to build a substation to Station 3. It needs to be smaller number of bedrooms, smaller kitchen, and not facilitate 11 members for 2 years while we build Station 1. So I think it makes a better sound decision to spread our forces about the city and locate them south, north, and east while we're doing this process. And then when we move them back into Station 1, and depending on how the growth continues down the upward corridor and down the south end of the city, then we can go back and visit Station 3.
Okay.
It'll give us an opportunity that we're recommending to Mr. Conant, Mr. Pauly, temporary housing there. It'll allow us to operate out of there and provide true factual numbers about our response times, that type of thing.
So the plan would be is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, because it was last week we talked about it, is we would move a truck to the north end to the Henderson County Emergency Management Building. The chief has got that worked out, I think. So we put one truck there. We would move a truck to station, or we move everything else everything else would go to the Station 3 site. However, we would lease or purchase a modular unit with and also modular storage that could easily be used by the city when and if we decided not to build a new station. So we would locate it on the Station 3 site. So we would have two apparatus at Station 3 site to serve the south side of town through a temporary quarters. And then we would be able to run the numbers. When the new station is built, we'll be able to bring people back and determine where are we? Are we ready to build Station 3, or do we leave a truck in temporary quarters until we're ready to build the permanent station there? And we have numbers, and then the temporary quarters that we buy, this is a good suggestion, or lease, we would have the ability to, particularly the metal building we would put up, we could relocate for other use by the city. So that's kind of the plan that we have.
Both of those assets, and that we discussed basically a lease option versus a purchase option. It's $15,000 more to own the building than it is to lease it.
Right.
So it's kind of a no-brainer. The other benefit is it's a city asset that we can then relocate to water and sewer. We can move the building where the building's needed. The Morton building that would be put up to house the fire apparatus can be relocated to Sugarloaf Road and put up to store equipment, store fire. It could be used throughout, by the city at wherever it's needed throughout the city, whether it's back at Sugarloaf Road or it gets moved to another location, Public Works, and needs the building to house a boom back truck or something along those lines. So it's not like we would lose the asset. We would just relocate that asset.
Yeah. So that's kind of the plan. So we'll get a little bit of kind of a hybrid option here.
Because that was one of my big concerns, is just like them having to come all the way out from the EMS center, essentially, all the way to these calls on the south end.
Right, and that would be defeating the purpose. And so that's what we've Mr. Pauly allowed us the opportunity to go out and seek alternatives, and we've done that.
Well, they sound like really good alternatives.
Thank you. So we've negotiated with, I say tentatively negotiated, we sat down and talked about what would be best for the citizens and visitors to our community, and that would be dispersing assets to both the north, south, and east portion, Station 2 being the east, so that we could come from all different directions, as opposed to completely moving everybody to Station 2 and stripping. Right. Okay. Or doing the same thing, putting everybody on the north end of town, and then we're driving through town just to get to the south end of town. So redistributing our assets is in the best interest of the citizens and visitors.
And I know we're right here at 6 o'clock, so just got to give again the fire department kudos. They looked at 6 options, so that they really did. I mean, even existing commercial buildings all over town. So they did a really good job of analyzing what the most cost effective and from cost as well as response time.
That's great.
So I'm hearing we're still, everybody just checking in. We're all good to go. We will also begin some park design and development to relocate some facilities. So that process will start as we move forward with the acquisition of Edwards Park and Patton Park.
So it's a fair statement that this is the last summer of miniature golf where it is.
That would be.
I think we just to be honest with people.
Yeah, I think it's a fair statement.
Last summer is going to be where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And certainly the best pickleball courts in the county. Man, it's good.
Yes. Okay. Madam Mayor, I think Keith, I think we're good with direction.
Yeah, we're excited. Thank you guys for selecting us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, we have come to the end of our agenda. We are adjourned.
Thank you.